Hi, everybody. I know a lot of us are doing a lot of soul searching about what happened in this country that it has come to where we are. And one of the things all of us have to look at is what part did I play, directly or indirectly, in allowing this to happen? One of the things that I think people are looking at is how distracted we have been, how we took our eye off the ball, that we thought politics was somebody else's business. There was a political class who would handle it. We thought, I'll show up for the midterms, I'll vote in the midterms, I'll vote for the president. But we didn't realize that the forces that we need to most be concerned about are out there every day. I think a lot of people do realize this and realize that we're ready to do things differently. And that's why, yes, I'm going to be talking to you about something related to the 2026 campaigns today. You might be thinking, oh, I have to think about this already. Number one, the answer is yes. And I think that as this interview continues, you'll see why. But there's something else I want to talk about as well. And that's that we're going to be talking today to J.D. Scholten, who is a candidate for Senate in Iowa against far-right Republican Senator Joni Ernst. We'll be talking about all that. But if any part of you is thinking, hey, I don't live in Iowa, therefore this is not relevant for me, please let me correct that assumption. You've seen enough. We've all seen enough that's been happening ever since the day that Trump was elected about how Congress has just surrendered things to him, surrendered its own authority, been willing to acquiesce to such nefarious policies. And in many cases, it was like one vote away, 2 votes away, 3 votes away from what we would have needed to make sure that those things did not occur. So every Senate race is important for all of us, and every congressional race is important for all of us. The last thing I want to say before I introduce JD is this. I've seen a lot. I think I've seen the best, but I've seen the worst. And you've heard me talk a lot about, oh, you should see how corrupt that is, or you should see how dark that is. But I want to do more than just expose whatever information I have about what's not cool in this country in terms of politics. I also want to introduce whatever I know or whoever I know that has to do with the best of what we can be, the best of what is possible in America. And that's why I'm so really excited to introduce you to my friend, someone I have known, someone I agree with, write down one thing after another when it comes to policy, someone I think would make such a great senator from Iowa, and that is J.D. Scholten. J.D., welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. You're making me blush.
Well, you and I have known each other. You've been very good to me when I was running, when I was in Iowa. I've seen you. A lot of people know that you came very close to defeating Steve King, who was such an avowed racist, right? When he was a congressman. You didn't quite make it, but you paved the way, and then someone did 2 years later. Tell us what happened. What has made you, and of course, we should mention that you are even now in the Iowa State Legislature. Tell us about what happened. Most of us have seen the video by now, but perhaps someone hasn't. What did Joni Ernst say and do to make you go, that's it, I'm running?
Yeah, so there was, I think, 3 things. This race really wasn't on my radar at the beginning of the year. And the first thing that happened was at the Trump inauguration, seeing those 4 tech billionaires front row was very meaningful to me, because I think of the Judge Brandeis quote, we have a choice to make. We can have wealth concentrated in the hands of a few, or we can have a democracy, but we cannot have both. And so that was the first thing. The second thing was the tariffs. I got into politics because my grandmother is my biggest inspiration, and she, on her deathbed, told me, you got to take care of the farm. And then the third thing was what Joni Ernst said at that town hall, where she said, we're all going to die. When they were talking about what I call the billionaire bailout bill. And somebody goes, well, people are going to die when you kick them off their Medicaid. And then her response was, we're all going to die. And we all don't have to die so billionaires can have a bigger tax break. But I know we all are going to die. So I was actually on my way to a funeral of a local activist, a family friend, Gary Lipschutz, and Senator Harkin was attending that funeral. And this used to be Senator Harkin's seat. And so when I'm sitting there at the funeral trying to honor my friend's life, thinking about what she said, thinking about Senator Harkin and his legacy, and that's when I thought, you know what, I got to get in this race.
Well, it wasn't just what Joni Ernst said at that town hall when somebody said, people are going to die because of these Medicaid cuts, and she said, we're all going to die. To me, even more offensive. That was just a disagreement about politics. To me, her doubling down the next day with that video in the cemetery was what was genuinely offensive. Would you tell people?
Okay, so yeah, exactly. We all thought, okay, maybe a slip up, that was early morning, whatever. I understand. And then the very next day, she has this video in a cemetery, and it's just mocking us, Iowans. It's mocking Christians. It's just mocking people in general. And she goes on to say, like, oh, I shouldn't bring up the truth berry because that, like, just very disrespectful. And like, that's where politics is headed and is at right now, where you mock your own constituents, and we should not be rewarding that. That is part of what I decided to do, get in this race. So I was thinking about this race at that time, but it was that town hall and it definitely that video, that graveyard video, that I was like, I can't sit on the sidelines. And so we launched on that Monday, just 2 days later. And the very next day, they changed the rating from this being a safe Republican seat to a lean Republican with a chance for an upset.
Okay, so everybody, I want to make clear what was in that second video. She said, instead of saying, I apologize for acting, as the cavalier about people dying because of Medicaid cuts, instead she said, I'm sorry, I made the mistake of thinking that there were people in that audience who didn't know we were going to die. I just hope I wasn't talking to people who actually still have to be told that there's no tooth fairy. And then she went on to say, and for anybody who is concerned about death, I hope you will embrace my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, which was pretty shocking to hear from a U.S. Senator trying to explain why people should not be afraid of Medicaid cuts. Because everybody, you can decide for yourself whether or not you think Jesus would say, why don't we heal the sick and help the poor? When JD was talking about the famous Brandeis quote that you've heard me discuss before. You can have large amounts of money concentrated in the hands of a few, or you can have democracy. You cannot have both. So what does that mean? What that means is that when there is large amounts of money concentrated in the hands of a few, such as the billionaires who were standing right in front of Donald Trump when he was inaugurated, they have leverage with that wealth that drowns out the voices of the regular people. And so what will happen in this race, and this is why it's important to know about JD now, it's important to decide right now what you are willing, please don't underestimate ever what your $5 can do. Don't underestimate ever what your $5 a month or whatever you're posting about someone, you're talking about someone can do. What will happen in Iowa, as in everywhere, in seats like this, there are people who want the Joni Ernst of the world to be in the Senate in order to vote for such things as the extension of tax cuts at the expense of Medicaid and so forth. They will be drowning the airwaves in Iowa. That's where most of this money goes to this. Before the event, there will be just days and days and days where Joni Ernst in these television ads will be blaring out at the people of Iowa. That's why we need to support JD now. If in fact you agree with what you're about to hear from him, to support him now so that he has such a strong standing. He has such strong inroads with the people of Iowa that they're less vulnerable to the propaganda that will be coming at them later. Did I get that? Do you agree with what I said?
Yeah. And one thing
Okay.
you mentioned earlier, my 2018 campaign, and I think 2018 is going to be a similar year of 2026. Okay. And you have to keep in mind, when I ran for Congress in 2018, Trump won my district by 27 points. And we moved the needle 24 points. We lost by just 3 points in the most conservative district in the entire state. So if we run statewide, we can do something pretty special. And that's what people are so excited about our campaign here in Iowa.
And I'm excited too, and I hope that everybody's listening will become excited. So this is the deal, what you represent, and like I said, you and I really agree about these things. We've talked about the same issues. It's because I believe that what you stand for, the things I've stood for, are the things that would provide a compelling alternative to the agenda of the far-right machine headed by Donald Trump. Tell us what the main issues are. Tell us what you think is important to take to the U.S. Senate in order to change this country.
So every single day, and keep in mind, when you run in a district that Trump won by 27, you don't have the luxury of hiring a pollster or all this early on. And so I got these issues from going out and holding hundreds of town halls all across Iowa. So we every single day talk about fight, fix, secure, fight for universal health care, fix the economy so it works for everyone, just not the billionaires and the huge multinational corporations. And then the third is secure democracy from the special interests and the billionaires that are trying to dictate it.
Talk about healthcare.
Yeah. So
why universal healthcare?
So when I initially ran for Congress, we had 5 consecutive years of low commodity prices for farmers. So their backs were against the wall. They were struggling. And the number one thing they brought up in Iowa was having to work that second or third job off the farm just to pay for their healthcare expenses. Every community in Iowa has a GoFundMe, a pancake breakfast, or a donation box to help pay for someone's medical bills. And we're the wealthiest country in the world. It is so immoral. I can't comprehend that we don't take healthcare and we just riot about healthcare because, I mean, this is our livelihoods. And then you have this billionaire bailout bill that's going to kick not only Medicaid folks off, it's going to hurt rural hospitals, it's going to hurt rural nursing homes and hurt rural OBGYNs. So that will add stress to the urban centers and people are going to have to travel further. But the other side of it is the exchange part. When folks are going on the exchange, it's going to jack up prices because when you cut out the Medicaid part, these hospitals and these healthcare facilities are going to have to figure out how to make up for lost money. And that means most likely that's going to come on your back. And so, yeah.
Well, also this administration and the things that Congress is doing to support the administration are not just withholding health care. They're also sure to make people more sick, having to do with food policies, agricultural policies, environmental policies. Hey, we don't need to regulate the air. We don't need to regulate toxins in the water and so forth. And of course, you come from farmland. You come from farmers. Your grandmother's last words to you were take care of the farm. Talk to us. And I've heard you go on and on and on about how a big mistake of the Democratic Party over the last few decades is that it's become such an urban party and has dismissed the needs and the concerns of rural America. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, that's a huge part of mine. And the one things that I've done was talk to farmers who will always vote for me and ones who will never vote for me and everywhere in between. And one of the huge things that I can get all of them to agree upon is when I talk about anti-monopoly and antitrust issues, they understand it. They're being squeezed on the input side and on the market side. And so I have no problem going into these rural communities, regardless of where they are at politically, and having a sit-down conversation, and we can agree on the problem. Now let's work on the solution. And so I don't think Democrats have leaned into enough of what Lena Khan did at the FTC.
Good stuff.
Right. And I think if I was running whether Harris' campaign or Biden's campaign, I would
have bragged about her more.
Exactly. I mean,
I would have too.
She has both
she was
sides.
The real deal.
Exactly. And you look at like what Delta Airlines is doing right now with the if an airplane ticket is not $300, it's whatever they think they can maximize they can get from you. That is
evil.
Atrocious.
Nothing short of evil.
Exactly. And that's going to go into our grocery stores. That's going to go into everything we buy from here on out. And so we need these strong boundaries and just saying, we're fighting for you. It's like the reason why I got into politics, the reason why I'm a Democrat is because I stand up to bullies. And to me, one of the biggest bullies out there in Iowa are these huge multinational corporations that are really dictating and extracting the wealth from our communities. And a lot of our rural communities are just shells of what they used to be. And the other side of it is we're the second most cancer rate in the entire country and the fastest growing.
Tell me about the cancer rate, and that is because?
Well, there's not a fixed reason why, they say, but a lot of it has to do with, I mean, we lead by far with
pesticides.
Well, it's not only pesticides, it's also hog manure. And so like when you have all these things, the land can only hold so much. It gets into our waterways and then it gets into our drinking waters and wells. And so, I mean, the cancer rates all across the board, especially in rural areas, is just going up and it's very dangerous.
Let's talk a little bit more about the cancer of corporate conglomeratization, which has become such a plague on every sector of American society. I want to tell you a story that has stayed with me and that I've mentioned a lot. It was in the 2020 campaign, and I was talking to a small town mayor in South Carolina. And he was saying, many years ago in rural towns, the government would give these grants, not just loans, but also grants to rural towns so that he said, I could attract so many people who would love to come raise their kids in a city like this, but we don't have the right sewage, we don't have the right roads, we don't have the right schools, etc. He said that stopped in the 1980s. And of course, we all know the line, go big or go away, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that had to do not only with the big companies that buy the land, that buy the farms, and also the big banks. So he was telling a story about how previous to that time, a farmer would come into the local bank, and the local banker probably knew that farmer, and said, my yield wasn't good this year. And the local banker was very likely to say, that's okay, pay us next year. Once the big banks came in, that banker has never even seen that land. That banker has never walked that land. That banker doesn't know this farmer and says to the farmer, hey, I guess what you'll have to do is just sell off to the big guys and then they'll take it from here. This is the kind of down in the weeds way that this huge conglomeratization has robbed people of their farms, robbed people of their health, robbed people of kind of the dignity. I mean, farming. And another one thing I want to mention to that, JD, is I'm sure you see this. I saw it in places like Iowa. You have young people today who think it's hip and cool to be farmers again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so cool. These young people, they want to be farmers. They can't buy the land.
No.
They can't find any land that it is affordable. It's like buying a house. How are they going to buy any land? How are you going to fix this? What are the rural policies that the Democrats need to represent in order to turn this around in that sector?
Yes, especially when it comes to rural communities, everything goes through the Farm Bill. We need to add
Right.
competition, and we need to add conservation and a regional food system narrative. So just like the food aspect, you mentioned younger people want to get more involved. I've gone to Farm Aid the past couple of years. There's a whole food conference that's before the music concert, and it is awesome. You're seeing all these people in different areas doing really
I
cool
know.
things, and it's like, oh my goodness. And just think about a state like Iowa. When you think about it, you think of agriculture, yet 90% of the food we eat is imported. And then you think,
Wait, in this country?
no, in Iowa, like we don't feed ourselves. And then you talk about like fruits and vegetables. So I think it's 60% of fruits. They might be flipped, but 60% of fruits and 40% of vegetables are imported. That's nationwide. And so like just basic things like blueberries, we could be growing blueberries all across this country, but we choose to have blueberries shipped from hundreds of thousands, down in South America and things like that. And I get there's different seasons of things, but ultimately it's because there's cheaper labor in other places. And we don't subsidize the food we eat. We subsidize massive international trade and grain that goes out that feeds.
Right.
Yeah. So,
yeah, the money forces over the people. Well, now I've also heard you talk about the consequences that tariffs have introduced
Yeah.
in the lives and in the livelihood of farmers. Talk to us about that. How do the tariffs affect all that?
Yeah. So last year, or the last Trump administration, what the biggest impact on farmers in Iowa was the tariffs when Iowa farmers soybean farmers number one export was China, and we spent decades getting into that market. And now, because we've become an unreliable supplier because of what Trump did in the first administration, they're going down to Brazil, and we lost that market.
That's right.
So then now we're mostly corn, soybean market. We don't know what to do with. And so now farmers are like, okay, what's that other crop? Are we just going to go corn every year? And that hurts the soil. And so we have to find ways, whether it's doing more hemp or just other things. And so that's why I feel like regional food systems are so important
Right.
to what we need to be doing.
Right.
Because you look at the pandemic and put a spotlight on this, how vulnerable we become. Egg prices, the reason they got jacked up is because we consolidated so much. There's a disease, the avian bird flu, that got into our flocks. And then all of a sudden, because we're so concentrated, it jacks up the prices. And it's the same thing we saw with baby formula a few years ago. So we need to decentralize. We need to create regional food systems so we can feed ourselves. It allows us to be healthier. It allows smaller communities to have more of an impact. And it's a win-win-win all across the board.
Now, I remember when that horrible demolition of USAID programs was occurring early in the Trump administration. A lot of the food that farmers in this country were producing was food that would then be sent to other countries. Did that affect some of the farming in Iowa as well?
A little bit, yeah, it did. Because again, like it's we spent decades
So
building
immoral.
this. Yeah, we spent decades to this, and food's just rotting. Like it's just it's impossible. And one other thing,
So,
like, well, quickly, I'll just say that,
no,
like,
please.
apple juice, 60% of apple juice consumed in America comes from concentrate in China. Think of the environmental impact of shipping that all the way here. And there's apple orchards in every state and all across Iowa. I know that. And so, like, what are we doing here when it comes to like a lot of these programs? And yet the Farm Bill is all about get big or get off the farm. It's the top 10% of funds. The largest 10% gets 90% of the subsidies. And then when we think about, like, they say we should have fruits and vegetables should be 50% of our food intake, yet only 4% of the Farm Bill actually goes to fruits and vegetables
Okay.
that humans eat.
Okay. So everybody understands what you stand for, the populism that you stand for, and so forth. Would you say that Iowa was kind of a ground zero state in terms of the transition from a solidly Democratic state, which it pretty much was when I was growing up, to this red wave represented by such as your Governor Kim Reynolds and your Senator Joni Ernst? You would agree with that, correct?
I mean, I would say that we were a proudly purple state with a lot of progressive history. We had the first women attorney things, and we had like a lot of historic women suffragettes here in Iowa. So like we have this rich history in being progressive, yet we were a purple state. And then since 2010, we become red.
Okay, so a lot of people listen to you now and recognize the uphill climb that you've got in front of you. How are we going to make this happen? What is your sense? I was a very educated state. I was there for a while, and I met some really wonderful people. I saw the corruption of the system, but the problem is not in the American people. The American people are smart, and they're decent, and they listen. What is your read on what's going on in Iowa? Are people who trusted the Trump agenda, who trusted the Joni Ernsts of the world, are they having some awakening experiences? Are they starting to doubt all that? What's happening?
Yeah, there's definitely a level of frustration out there because of all the impacts, and like the retaliatory tariffs and a lot of this stuff are directed for states like Iowa. And so there's going to be a huge economic impact in Iowa. There's going to be a huge economic impact on what the billionaire bailout bill was going to do to our state. And so when you add all those things up together, there's huge potential in Iowa. And I firmly believe, like, a democratic way is not good enough in Iowa. We have to do more. And that's one thing that I'm proud of all of my campaigns. I've overperformed the top of the ticket in every single race I've ran. And I currently, in my state house, represent a district that Trump won. And so how do we welcome people into our coalition? Like, there's a lot of folks who will, like, try to dumb down their message or anything like that. That's not what we do. We welcome people in, but we're very strong on what we believe, that fight, fix, secure every single day. And so that's the other part of it too, is after I've ran for federal office and now I'm at the state level, being at the state level has been great because you have these deep rooted conversations with folks and you realize it's not so much trying to get Republicans to vote Democrat, which would be nice, but that is a lot harder than getting people who are not engaged. And so, and that's what I've really focused on. What I call the B's and the S's in my district: the bartenders, the barbers, the baristas, the servers, and the stylists. Those are all people who talk to other people. And so if you can get those folks on board, that's how we start this grassroots movement. It's folks like that, the people who work at cash registers at gas stations. I remember pulling in I used to have a huge Winnebago RV called Sioux City Sue, and we hope to bring her back with this campaign. And when I pulled in, I would talk to every cash register person working the cash register and say, "Are you planning on voting?" And about 60% would probably not. And I was like, well, here's the reason why, and here's why you should vote for me.
Okay, so people have given up, and that's part of what happened
Yeah.
here. Roosevelt said we wouldn't have to worry about a fascist takeover in this country as long as democracy delivered on its promises. Democracy has not delivered on its promises, and people have just thrown their hands up in the air. How can we help you? What do you need now in terms of support, not only from people in Iowa, but from people around the country? What can we do to help you make this happen?
Well, there's two really big things. I would say the first one, it's always comes down to money. So if folks can chip in whatever they can, that goes a long way. You can go to our website, scholtenforiowa.com. The other thing is help amplify our message, because I think what we need to be doing is shaping the Democratic Party and in what we believe in. They're right now, the national Dems, and you know this very well. They don't want to talk about the Lena Khans of the world. They want to do other things.
Or the universal health
Or
care.
universal health care, we have to shape it. And so as much as I am a Democrat and all that, but I am fighting the Democrats to shape it because where I'm from in Iowa, they have abandoned us. And so we're trying to build as we go. And so anything you can do to help get our message out, it helps a long ways.
To complete, I know it sounds like obvious, but I don't think it is obvious to everyone. Just tell people, what is this money used for?
No, great question. And I don't think we talk about it enough. So I have early on right now, we're what, year and a half away. So right now, the biggest thing we're doing is building and scaling out. So I have an amazing team. We just finished. So one of the things I haven't even talked about yet is I'm playing professional baseball. So
your T-shirt's in the Baseball Hall of Fame. You're a relief pitcher right now at the Sioux City Explorers.
So
I was a cheerleader in the 9th grade.
I can see that.
Yeah.
So
I'm your cheerleader now.
Oh, thank you. So it's a little bit different, but we just had our All-Star break, and so it gets back to where we're spending the money on. So we just had our All-Star break, and we were able to do events all across Eastern Iowa, and it was just so wonderful to get back out there. And so right now, the big thing that we're trying to do is scale up. So that means that help open up offices in local areas to help get volunteers going. That means eventually getting another Winnebago RV so we can go out to everywhere and have that brand, which is so important, and then just grow with staff. And so it's just getting campaigns off the ground.
So I want to slow down a little bit on that, just make sure everybody knows. So what JD is saying is he needs to open up offices around the state.
Yeah.
So in order to open up the offices around the state so voters can see, oh, he's got an office there. I can go in, I can talk to them. I can get their literature. He comes by. You got to pay the rent.
Mm-hmm.
You can do a lot with volunteers, but there's a lot you can't do with volunteers. You can't, pay for the Winnebago with volunteers. You can't pay the rent of that office with volunteers. You can't, you have to buy the literature and do the digital and stuff. And there's a lot that volunteers can do, but there's a lot that volunteers cannot do. And that's where it's not just your $5, it's other people's $5. And that's where those small donations can make such a big difference. And where I hope that you feel, even if you don't live in Iowa, this is worth the energy that you can put in various ways. Anything else you want to tell us about your campaign, how people can help you? I will put underneath this video, people will see the Scholten for Iowa.
Sweet.
Also, you've got a Substack. Tell us, what's that called? Being screwed or something like that? What is it?
Yeah, it's called You're Probably Getting Screwed. And if you don't like the name, my mom doesn't either.
I like it, actually. I like it, actually, because people at this point know that.
Right. And the whole reason I did it is because there's all this news in the world that wasn't getting in front of folks. And it's not the headlines, there's little stories. It's like the Delta Airlines story. That's not making the headlines in the Sioux City Journal.
You and I both know that, and I was talking to Lauren about that yesterday or somebody. Tell people, take a moment to explain a little bit for people who might not know what Delta and the nefarious thing that they're doing. And also that, of course, is connected to the fact this is one of the reasons why we should be so concerned that DOJ got all our data.
Yes.
Because people are just mining our information to use it against us. So tell us what Delta is doing.
So they have AI program that maximizes what they think you're willing to pay for a airplane flight, not the price of what it costs them or anything like that. And it's just to maximize absolute consumer data and consumer payment on this. And so we have to start
it's so
doing
evil.
Yeah. it's
So they know that if you're going to a funeral, you're probably willing to pay a little more because you absolutely have
Exactly.
to get there.
it's the same thing as like, okay, let's say you have a candy bar or like a protein bar. We're going to get to the point where we know he's hungry, or they know JD, they'll know my data, and they're like, oh, JD's hungry around 3:00. So if he's buying it at that time, we can charge $5 rather than $1.25 when he's not that hungry. That's the type of thing that's happening, or going to happen on a lot larger scale. And so
just for people to know, this is why AI regulations are so important. And part of that bill, that big, beautiful, really big, ugly bill, had to do with making sure that no regulations on AI would be forthcoming. Am I correct in everything I just said?
they did take they took the AI stuff out of it, I believe.
Okay.
But Trump is trying to do an executive order. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure I just read this yesterday that he's trying to do an executive order to not allow the states to regulate AI. And so
and that's because of the AI billionaires.
Yeah,
who don't want any guardrails, don't want any ethical guardrails, don't want any regulations.
And
right?
the AI right now, they're trying to have gatekeep amongst the huge top tech firms. So there's no innovation in AI on entrepreneurship. They want it all in the big, huge tech monopolies. And that's the big fight that's happening right now. And so I do want to bring this one thing up because I don't think it's gotten enough attention. But I mentioned previously the 4 tech billionaires sitting front row at the inauguration. Well, they each donated $1 million each. So that's $4 million. JBS, the world's most corrupt meatpacking company out of Brazil, gave $5 million to the Trump administration for their inauguration. And they have over $256 million worth of corruption fines. And yet the Trump administration has allowed them to be publicly traded. And so now Wall Street's going to invest in them, and that's going to squeeze out our farmers and our cattle ranchers and farmers. And that is something that is not getting talked about at all. And it's the corruption.
The corruption is so normalized at this point.
Yes.
And he likes those bad guys.
I know.
That's the people he likes to play with. Gee, I wonder why. Mm-hmm. Oh, JD, absolutely. And a little bit of a sociopathic mentality, et cetera.
Yeah.
So I want to do anything I can, of course, to be of support. And I hope that those of you who have been listening to JD will do what you can. Will continue to follow him. Let us know.
Yeah.
Let us know. Guys, there's some things in politics that are just shameful. And then every once in a while, there are people who are, yes, that's it. If you see somebody, and if you feel this way about JD right now, if you see somebody who does stand for what you believe, who does help them, support them, none of this, he won't win, or they won't let him win, or any of that stuff, which isn't even true. It isn't even true if we support the candidates that we want. So I hope that we have inspired you. I hope that JD has inspired you. I'm just here, but hopefully platforming him this morning has in some way contributed to your feeling more motivated and more inspired by the possibilities of what America could be if we send people like JD to Congress.
Thank you so much, Marianne.
Oh, much love to you. God bless. Good luck. And I hope to see you in Washington, D.C.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Bye.